If the government was about to make a fatal mistake in policy that would make your life more expensive and put you and the people you love in jeopardy, would you do anything about it? This is a petition to stop government implementing the next phase of the emission rule, which will create pollution, risk lives, and make cars more expensive. You may not believe that this affects you, but you'd be wrong. This affects every single person in New Zealand that drives or will drive a car. If we can't stop the government making mistakes, then we've lost our Kiwi spirit. And if that's true, then we are now the sheep of New Zealand. On the 1st of January 2009, the first part of the Labour government's Clean Green campaign came into effect on the used car import industry in the form of the emission rule. It basically meant that car dealers could not import cars that were made prior to 1998. That was actually a good thing. In January 2010, an update meant that car dealers could not import any cars that were produced basically prior to 2000. For diesel vans, trucks, buses, cars, mobile homes, four-wheel drives, it meant that we couldn't import anything basically from a 2004, which was a bad thing. Its purpose was to remove older polluting vehicles from our roads, secure the green vote and get Helen a job at the UN. Some of that happened, and now Helen lives in a country that's probably more polluted than New Zealand. At a time when the country is in recession, maybe heading for depression, Helen has left behind a set of rules that are going to have the opposite effect of what they were intended for. The IMVDA pointed this out on page 3 of their July 2007 submission to Land Transport New Zealand. But the government refused to listen. They spent thousands of taxpayers' dollars sending officials to Japan to observe emission tests of older vehicles versus brand new ones. But the results weren't pleasing. In some cases, older vehicles produced just as much emissions as brand new vehicles. And in some cases, they actually outperformed newer vehicles and created less emissions. The results were the opposite of what the government wanted, so they brushed them under the carpet and proceeded anyway. It's hurt small businesses and the people that are looking for diesel vehicles. The $500 cars have gone, they're now $1,500. Think about that. Right, we're here on the North Shore with Mark Orr, who's runs a small painting business. Mark, what's up?
Well, we're looking to upgrade our company vehicles, something a little bit more reasonable and a bit later model, and we actually can't afford to because today's market is going to cost us $35,000 and we only really give ourselves about a $10,000 to $15,000 budget, and so it's really quite hard in today's economy for us to upgrade.
So the first rule didn't work. It also didn't affect many of us, and we just struggled on with our life. But that's not the problem. The problem is the next rule, and that comes into effect on the 31st of December 2011, this year. This new rule basically means that we will not be able to import anything that was made prior to 2004, and in some cases 2007 and 8. That's 85% of all vehicles that have come into New Zealand this year. And guess what? The 15% of cars that are left, they aren't the cheaper ones. They are the way more expensive cars, selling this year between 16 and 100 grand. How many of us can afford something like that? If you thought an 8 grand loan was bad, try a 16 to a 20 grand loan for an entry-level Japanese import. And if you say, I'll just go and get one that's already here, think about this. New Zealand writes off between 120 and 140,000 vehicles per year. With an 85% lack of supply of vehicles to replenish the market, the cars that are already here are going to become more expensive, and some of those vehicles that should have been taken off the road are going to be repaired and put back on. And if you say, I wasn't going to buy an old car, I was going to buy a new one for 18 grand, you'd be wrong. Franchise dealers have continually tightened their margins in order to stay competitive with the Japanese import market. Don't think for 1 minute that they won't raise their prices given the opportunity. It's the first thing they're going to do. An additional submission submitted by the IMVDA in October 2010 on page 4, it states that in order for their forecasts to retain any accuracy, there would need to be no change in the number of cars being sold and produced in Japan. The New Zealand economy and consumer confidence would need to continue at current levels, with no change to exchange rate and immigration levels to stay the same. Crikey, it's just got a lot worse than when they made their submission. And if you still think this isn't going to affect you, then consider this. We all have aunts, uncles, husbands, wives, lovers, mothers, brothers, fathers, sisters, cousins, children, and friends that could be in this situation.
So far away and you like it, bend your back to your friend. So you might as well smack yourself.
Wow, I couldn't stop. I didn't even see that dummy.
I'm not a dummy, I'm a mannequin.
Mate, that's a dummy.
I heard that. Hey, did you sign the petition?
I would rather there were good quality, less pollutant, cheap, reliable, safe cars on our road versus older, tireder, more polluting ones. What about you? So please sign the petition. It does affect you. It affects us all. If you've made it this far, thanks very much for watching. My name's Chris Jelly. If you're still not convinced, look for the hyperlinks at the end of this video and watch what other people are saying about the same rule. Thanks again. Appreciate your support.